Dun, 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 dun. Cognitive Stack series. Let's talk about FI today. Yeah! To the whole world, FI is used as a selfish function, but it shows up artistically. Fascinating, huh? Think about it. All the art you've ever seen was somebody expressing their feelings. Introverted feeling. Now you can see, well, I don't feel like I'm an artist. Hell, let's talk about it. Everybody is an artist in some way or another. Because we all have this function. And because they show up in pairs of 2, 8 cognitive stacks, but 16 personality types. We're going to talk about them 2 at a time as we go. Happy down to the demon mode and the negative. Because there are shadow users of FI. You ready? All right, here we go. The dominant FI users, those who radiate how they feel constantly, are of course the ISFP and the INFP. Now remember, FI is a selfish function and an artistic function combined. So it has a very positive side and a very negative connotation. Because selfish is not always bad. You need to put your oxygen mask on first in order to help other people. It's not about helping other people at all. This is about expressing how you feel. INFPs have a secondary function that is NE, making everything that they use FI for, typically speaking, abstract, something you can't touch. This is why INFPs tend to fall into, having a sketchbook around and drawing a lot, creating this intangible form of art, because a lot of them are also authors. They can create these worlds in their mind and put that through their FI. So an abstract form of art. Typically speaking, right? Not every INFP is an author or a creator, but I would highly suggest that if you are INFP, you have something and you need to create and you need to finish that creation. That's a different video though, because if you're FI dominant, then you're TE inferior. It means you don't always finish what you start, and it doesn't need to be finished because you expressed how you feel. You see how that can kind of go against, different video. Anyway, that other FI dominant ISFP utilizes SE as a secondary function, which means a concrete form instead of abstract of their art. So ISFPs tend to fall a lot of the times into being musicians. They love to feel a artistic thing. So a lot of them are granola, right? They love to go climbing and hiking and outside. It's a touchable form of the beautiful artistic world that we're in. INFPs, they don't need to be outside and adventuring in a concrete way. That's not where they get their fun. They get their fun in here and here. ISFPs get their feelings through this outside form. They're always the, I don't want to say it. ISFPs are the cute personality type. They're just very adorable. ISFPs, they're very skittish and shy, but they do their thing and then they get out of there. It's FI to SE, a concrete form of art. Okay, moving on to the next FI user, or users, I should say, the FI parents, like myself, ESFP and ENFP. We are FI parents. What we create is something that we feel we need to share with the world. We have our dominant functions being NE for ENFP and SE for ESFP. And then we use FI to shove that out into the world. The ESFP and the ENFP are actually very, very different. For some reason, they both like to entertain, but very differently. ENFPs like to create and have abstract conversations. If they create at all, they don't have to. Stereotype is to create or campaign or both. For the ENFP, this makes them intuitive. They bring together all of these concepts and then they share their feelings on that. And to a lot of people, that can be, kind of nice to have around. Very common to find an ENFP at a party. Don't forget that they get their stimulus from concepts, abstract, right? So they're just like the INFP, because those are the top 2 functions that they share. Except for the ENFPs are obviously the extroverted version of the INFP that we talked about earlier. So that's a different video. Now the ESFP, that's me, that's my people, entertainers, utilizing concrete forms of how we feel. Similar to the ISFP, except we're not skittish like that. We're skittish in a little different way. We tend to overwhelm ourselves with a lot of artistic projects at the same time because we can be very present with whatever we're doing. Selectively doing that, and then we're doing that. Very tunnel vision ESFPs. Easily irritable, impatient, very fast paced. You can tell how fast I talk. You can tell how fast I talk because I don't care about being right. I care about sharing with you how I feel. Fast-paced version of the slow version that is the ENFP. ENFPs are very slow. They will take a very long time to process something because they're considering all of the options before they make a decision. Do not, and I mean this, do not just play a board game with an ENFP without considering that fact first. They will take a very long time to make their moves. And that just, that's how they function. So be aware and be patient and be loving. Remember that they're doing their FI out of a should factor. Feel that they just need to get out their feelings, and they're going to do that in their own different forms. Okay, moving on. The 2 users of FI child. This is where their childish way of using their feelings comes into play. That can be a little bit weird. Like, it's childish. It's black and white. It's like, that makes sense, but you're not looking at the other side. Okay. Like, they're staunch on this, but it takes a long time to persuade them otherwise. Once they lock on to something, it can be very hard to change their feelings about it. Try to persuade somebody who is an enforcer of the law, the ISTJ stereotype, that, hey, the law is wrong. Yeah, good luck with that. Try to persuade an INTJ who's an architect, or, stereotypically the villain or the big picture formulaic people, that their formula is wrong. Like, good luck trying to play with their FI. Their FI child function is very black and white. It is not fun to do that, but they can have FI conversations. It's childish. Somehow they've got all these barriers around their feelings, and it's very difficult because they'll throw a tantrum. It's the tantrum factor. So, ISTJs will storm out of a room, not acknowledge their feelings very easily, or yours for that matter. Because don't forget, the flip side of that is FE blind. So they don't even acknowledge your feelings at all. They think they do, but they're really not good with people. I'm saying it how I feel, right? I'm using my FI to put that onto you. See how I'm showing my ESFP side. Anyway, we got a lot of personalities to cover, and we're already halfway through the video. So, the FI inferior aspirational. These are people who get the most pleasure about sharing their feelings with the world, their feelings with you, except they don't really do it. They don't acknowledge feeling as that important. And if they do, it is a selfish and kind of a kind of way, right? ENTJs and ESTJs. So take that with a grain of salt and look at my other videos to understand those personality types differently. And they just don't utilize FI like the other ones that we mentioned earlier. It's intimidating. Their own feelings are intimidating, so they just avoid that. All right, moving on to the shadow stack. Those who do not necessarily get pleasure from their own feelings. How can you say that? That's weird. It's not very human to say that. But I mean, think about it. So here we go. The FI ally nemesis slot, the fifth slot, we're talking about the fives, are people who, if they use their feelings or they acknowledge their feelings, then they are amazing at life, healthy and all of that. If they ignore their own feelings and they let the world step on them, which that is a natural thing for these two types to do, then you'll see how they can kind of collapse. The ESFJ and the ENFJ are FE dominant, which means that their dominant purpose in life is to do something for other people. And when that is the opposite of considering themselves, well, they're very selfless. So if they use a little bit of selfishness with their selflessness, then you know what? They can kind of have that balance. I think that covers those two pretty well. Now, the FI critics. Oh, these ones, man, I'm telling you. They are so critical of FI, and then this form of FI is showed to the world in authenticity or harmony. It is not necessarily an artistic form in this particular slot. We're talking about the sixth one down. This is where somebody is critical of their own feelings. Now you can see how FI can be considered a very sensitive factor here. We're talking, of course, about INFJs and ISFJs. INFJs, you have to be so on point with harmony and authenticity and tickle them just right for them to feel harmonious, which is why they struggle with relationships in general, because their parental function is to be FE, to share with the world and help the world. But they can only handle so much of that because it's a parental function, because they're critical of their own feelings. So they kind of bite themselves as they try to help you. ISFJs, being the doctors and nurses and the caretakers, are just critical of their own art that they do put out. Very, very critical. I heard that Skrillex was an ISFJ. My uncle Donny Osmond, people say he's ISFJ. So you would think that people who are that critical wouldn't put out art, but hey, I even know an INFJ is a musician, so your personality type does not affect your musicianship. All right, so they're just critical of authenticity, even guardians of it. Moving on to FI trickster blind. These are people who think they're good at their own feelings, but that's not what their strong point is. Strong points are very different than acknowledging their own feelings. That's not how they get on in life. The ENTP and the ESTP, they playfully poke with feelings. Being FE child, both of these types are FI blind. They do not recognize their own feelings with things that they do. This can cause them to be, well, you want the shady stuff? You want the shady side? They lie, and they don't seem to care as long as things move forward. The stereotype is the ESTP, more than the ENTP, will just not care about the truth because the truth can be bent. Doesn't matter if you get the sale, right? Says the ESTP. ENTP says, well, you didn't consider all the different sides and what is actual truth. And ENTPs are going to consider what is truth. So you can see how FI blind is like a horrible thing if you're trying to be accurate. How they feel, you know what I'm saying? So accuracy is more along the lines of TI, which they're good at. Just their inner feelings are not accurate with they're not harmonious with what they're doing. So that's the negative trickster side. So that's why it can be very offensive and touchy. That's just that function. It's the most offensive. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Look it up, okay? Use your TI to acknowledge your FI. Some people say it makes them think that they're good artists when they're not. I don't think that's fully accurate. You don't have to have, an FI in a different slot to be an artist. You can just utilize your FI differently. So anybody can be an artist, okay? Like I mentioned earlier, everybody is. Now, the final form, we only have 30 seconds. FI demons. Oh my freaking gosh. They may never say I'm sorry. May never feel the need to. They ignore their feelings beyond anybody else. The ISTPs and the INTPs. INTPs have more feeling than you might think. But the ISTPs, I am a full believer that, they are killers and they have no remorse. But they're still human. So they do have these natural FI feelings. It is just demonic. Their feelings are icky to them. They will not acknowledge it. They will avoid themselves. If you disagree with me, feel free to look it up and we'll make a whole other video. But that's the answer for FI demon. The last thing on their mind is their own feelings. or other priorities. America Osmond, thanks so much.